Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am Roberta Barino, President of the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale. Co-sponsor for our forum today is the DuPage NAACP. We are recording this forum and you will be able to find the video on our website, www.lwvrb.org. We are also currently live streaming on our Facebook page, which can be found at facebook.com/LWVRB. Moderator for today's event is Lori Granawi from the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights. At this time, I will turn the program over to Lori.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I'm your volunteer moderator, Lori Granawi from the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights. Thank you for joining us. Candidate forums such as this one are sponsored by the volunteers from the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale in order to provide a nonpartisan venue for the general public to have an opportunity to participate in the electoral process by asking questions of the candidates about issues that concern them. This is an opportunity for civic discourse. Recordings of this event may not be used without the express written approval of the League. The League will only allow audio of this event to be broadcast in its entirety, except by the media reporting on the event. For today's virtual format, we directed those interested to email questions to the League in advance. These questions were monitored by League volunteers to be read by myself. The League, as a general practice, conducts candidate forums in this manner to ensure the questions are appropriate and also to avoid duplication of questions and to maximize the time we have allotted. We will do our best to read each question asked. The candidates have drawn lots to determine who will give their opening statement first. Then once we start reading questions, the second candidate will answer first, and so on. We will continue to rotate who answers the questions first after that. Candidates' questions and responses are timed. I will enforce the timing, so I may have to interrupt a speaker in order to keep things fair and equal. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the audience, we thank the candidates for participating. Please also join me in thanking the volunteers from the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale who are here in the background to assist with timing, collection, and sorting your questions to the candidates. Today, you will meet candidates for Lake Park High School District 108 Board. You will be voting for 4 of 7 candidates. 5 of the candidates are with us today. The other 2 did not respond. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with introductions, which are 2 minutes. So giving the first introduction is, and I hope I get your names correct, Tom Hollitz. Second up will be Chris Casagio. Did I say that right? You can, if I said it wrong, you can introduce yourself. Third is going to be Trustee. Fourth is Herbert Torres. And last will be Beata Swacha. So let's get started. First introduction.
Hello, my name is Tom Hollitz, and I'm running for re-election for the Lake Park District 108 School Board. I was appointed to the board 5 years ago and ran for election 4 years ago, and I am running to be re-elected. A little bit about myself. I have lived in Roselle for 28 years with my wife, and we have 2 grown children. In my time in Roselle, I have served as a volunteer and full-time youth minister. I have served as church lector. I have been a scout leader, Cub master for the Cub Scouts, and assistant scout master for the Boy Scouts here in Roselle. I've served for 10 years as the marching band photographer, chaperone, and board member. I've been a District 12 board member, and I'm a very ardent supporter of the fine arts. And I continue to volunteer to photograph and video all of the choir concerts, and the theater productions held at Lake Park. Professionally, I'm a retired school teacher, having served 34 years for Chicago Public Schools. And in that time, I developed expertise or degrees in school leadership, curriculum development, and implementation, as well as being an expert in the field of instructional technology. Two of my recognized awards in my career were being a Golden Apple finalist, and that was quite a daunting process, and also receiving the Dell Techno Award from Michael Dell himself. That was a unique experience. So that's about myself, and I look forward to your vote and being able to serve on the Lake Park Board for 4 more years. Thank you very much.
Right. So, hi, my name is Chris Casagio. I'm part of this panel today as I'm running for the District 108 School Board of Lake Park. Part of the reason I wanted to run and was that I think the school board needs a fresh perspective. I think that we've learned a lot over the last couple of years, specifically this year, about some of the priorities of the board and the administration, things like that. And I think the school board probably needs a fresh perspective, something that puts the kids first, puts the children first, that aligns their needs along with the administration and the school district. Professionally, I'm a regional manager for a food and beverage company. I've volunteered a lot of time in Bloomingdale and Roselle, coaching kids sports, including my three children, my 3 sons, the oldest who will be attending Lake Park next year, and then I will have 2 more kids attend Lake Park over the next 11 years. I think I will bring a fresh perspective and something that could provide some change.
Thank you. Kara.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this. My name is Kara Boroff-Steets, and the Boroff is important because I am a Lancer for life, and that is my maiden name. So having grown up in Medina, going to Lake Park, choosing to raise my 2 sons in the Lake Park School District, I have 1 graduate and 1 current student at Lake Park. I actually sought out the appointment that led to me joining the board in June of 2019 and have decided to run for election to serve 4 more years because I have brought with me some experience of deeply knowing the past of our community by actively serving in our community since as a child. So I know the communities through all the, from serving on the Roselle Chamber of Commerce, being an active participant and volunteer at my church, being part of a district-wide advisory committee in Medina school districts since before my children were actually in school. Years and years of service combined with my educational background, years of over 25 years in management. I have budgeting and grant writing experience that leads me to serve our community as a whole, be able to understand the information that we are working with to lead and make decisions in the best interest of our students, faculty, and community at large, as we owe them an obligation to serve all the community. And again, I ask for your vote, and I also ask for your vote for Torres and Hollitz. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Herbie.
Hello, my name is Herbert Torres, or Herbie for short. So a little bit about me. I've been married for 15 years to my wife, Rhiannon, and we have 6 children. Yep, you heard it right. I have 6 children. My oldest is in college, and I have a daughter who is currently in Lake Park High School, who's a sophomore. Youngest is a kindergartner at Benson Primary School. And the last 3 are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grader at Peacock Middle School. So just in case you're trying to do the math, I have children that will be attending Lake Park High School over the next 3 board terms. So I'm very interested in the current and future direction of Lake Park High School. I also bring to the position over 20 years of financial experience as I own a small successful consulting company. In addition, I've held many volunteer positions throughout my career, I'm most proud of the recent volunteer work as a treasurer of the Itasca Music Boosters, which works directly with the Itasca District 10 school music programs. Also a member of the Lake Park High School Parent Advisory Committee. As a parent and current student of Lake Park High School, I have seen many areas of improvement, but most importantly, I've seen a district that is willing to improve and change. If elected, what I hope to bring to the board is a commitment to trauma-informed teaching. It's my extensive business acumen and the ability to listen to concerns as both a resident and a parent. Thank you.
Thank you. And Beata.
Thank you so much and good afternoon. My name is Beata Swacha, or Beata Swacha, for those of you of a Polish heritage. And I'm running because I'm a member of this community for nearly 2 decades. I volunteer at the local parish, currently as a lead in the confirmation program of 8th graders. Who am I professionally? I'm a chief financial officer at a multi-million-dollar global nonprofit association who helps its members develop professionally. I oversee finances, human resources, information technology, administration, and capital improvements. So on day one, I bring all of those skill sets that I've learned in my professional life to this board, and we'll be able to analyze and address the complex issues with varied constituencies on day one. But most importantly, who am I personally? I'm a mom. Got a sophomore at Lake Park, and I've got 2 Westfield students. So when elected, throughout my 4 years, I will have 2 of my children at Lake Park. I will know, just like many of you, firsthand what parents have had to do and deal with. And not only are we working still, but we are now being asked so much more, especially in the last year. So I bring the parent perspective. I have a vested interest in my children. And so why did I run? I ran because of my principles. I'm a principles-based individual. I believe the more you give, the more you receive. I believe that if you don't like something, either do something about it or stay quiet. And I believe that our schools are critical in developing our students into well-rounded, successful individuals. And I fear that some of the decisions that have been made over the last 9 months have not helped to make our students succeed. So I want in-school students as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to start with our first question. Chris is going to begin with answering the first question. Is there a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan for the district? If yes, what are its main pillars? If no, how do you plan to implement one?
So I don't believe there's one. I think this is a critical time for Lake Park in general, and it's part of why I am running. The world has been turned upside down the last 2 or 3 years, specifically the last 12 months. When it comes to a diversity plan, obviously I think that's very important for everybody within the school, within the district, within our community to pay attention to those pillars. But when it comes to this type of question, I don't believe there's a diversity plan in place. And at this moment when our community is entertaining private schools, different types of schooling, they're kind of putting Lake Park aside. I get most of the information that I receive from talking to people in the community. As I mentioned, I have 3 boys and I'm in that world where I actually hear reactions and hear how people talk about Lake Park. I think at this point, we need to put the best person for the position in every position, no matter of race, creed, or diversity.
Thank you. Kara.
Well, I'm going to answer this as part of a triad because Tom, Herbie, and I are all going to address this so that we could dive a little deeper into the answers. But currently there is no equity plan within the district. It's simply because when the districts were doing a strategic plan and when it was written, it was not common to include such a practice. But it's important to understand the background and the racial and ethnic diversity breakdown in our district. Currently, we have 63% white, 20% Hispanic, 9% Asian, 5% Black, 3% that identify as other multi-race. But our staff population is 90% white, 4% Asian, 4% Hispanic, 1% Black, and 1% other. It's important to understand that the numbers of would indicate that our staff is not as diverse as we would like. And we hope to address that when we move toward our new strategic plan.
Thank you. Herbie.
Yep, and I think to continue to what Kara said, another point to note is that the equity and diversity is not just simply limited to racial and ethnic studies. What must also be aware of is that it must include different aspects of our population identity, including people in the LGBTQ plus community, the persons with disability, those that are socially and economically disadvantaged, recognition of those different cultures, languages, religions, and places of origin. It is our duty to make certain that all members are feeling represented, included, welcome, and encouraged. Throughout the next year, the district and the board mandates to develop and implement a long-range strategic plan. Equity and diversity will be a major component of this plan. Currently, the superintendent is working to develop representative teams for each of the stakeholders group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Tom. Oh, I'm sorry, Beata, I missed you.
Thank you, Lori. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is where, again, I can bring my day-to-day experience to the job day one. This is something that my company has been dealing with, not just equity, like has been said, racial equity, economic equity, learning equity, unconscious bias. This is what I've been dealing with my company. And so a policy is great, but policies sometimes just sit on a desk and don't get utilized. And so there can be actions taken by the district, not just wait for a plan to be developed. For example, one of the strategies that we've been utilizing at my company when interviewing new candidates is you stripe away the name, stripe away the address, and you look at a resume just based on the candidate's information and background, not who they are. And so these things that I am utilizing day to day, I can bring to the district to make sure that through our actions, we are bringing equity.
Thank you. And Tom.
Okay, to continue with what Herbie and Kara have said, the board has and the district has been working since the fall of 2019. They started conducting an equity and diversity review and in partnership with the DuPage County ROE. And we have a process in place under the direction of Dr. Yvette Dubiel, who has facilitated and is reviewing with the district administrative teams to where they've drafted a series of questions to enable all stakeholders in the district to be able to participate. Right now, Dr. Dubiel is analyzing that data, and she is going to return with feedback to all the stakeholders to help create a positive and inclusive environment for the school. The report from that will be generated, and it will be very instrumental in developing of the long-range strategic plan that is the next goal, the goal of the upcoming year for the district.
Thank you. Okay. Kara will start with question number 1, and here's the question, or question number 2. How should the school board effectively evaluate the superintendent, the only employee the school board does evaluate? And secondly, how should the board compensate the superintendent based on its evaluation? Kara.
Well, the approach that the board has taken in working with our new superintendent is to include a quarterly evaluation self-assessment. That's in an effort to be responsive to the needs of our district. And we've incorporated performance goals and self-assessment in part of his entire evaluation process. So I'll let my others continue that story.
Okay, and up next is Herbie.
Yep. Yeah, and I think as Kara had mentioned, There are four really main goals that the current superintendent has to meet. These include the creation of a strategic plan, the plan of a post-secondary career pathways program for all students, to propose a plan to improve programs that accommodate the wide range of students' opportunities, and lastly, to provide a financial presentation to the board. So definitely.
Thank you. Beata.
All right, well, this is again where my day-to-day experience will come in extremely handy, because performance evaluation, development, and goal setting is what I deal with on a weekly basis. Performance evaluation starts with goals. And if the current superintendent, the only 4 goals that he has right now are the ones that were just listed, how do you measure against that? There's not a lot of objectivity there. You start with a strategic plan that is actionable, that is measurable, and our district's is lofty. But just about any goal and any accomplishment can be said that it meets and succeeds in meeting those goals. So I would establish some specific goals that the superintendent must meet. And then you structure the compensation in order to encourage meeting those goals. And you don't do just a self-assessment, you include others, teachers, parents, and the school district in order to assess.
Thank you.
And then met those goals.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, I can respectfully disagree with Beata that 4 goals are more than sufficient for a superintendent to take on for district-wide goals. Certainly there are day-to-day decision-making procedures that have to take place. But if you have more than 4 initiatives happening inside any organization at one time, nothing is going to get done well. We are lucky to have hired a superintendent last year that not only a superintendent normally gets reviewed annually, but our superintendent has asked us as the board to please provide him feedback every quarter. And we have continued to do so. He's been appreciative of that. And those discussions are used when determining his payment and raises that he will receive.
Thank you. Chris.
So my thoughts on this would be that, this should be running like a business. The board of directors is there to oversee what the superintendent is doing, the decisions he's making, make sure he's making decisions that incorporate all of Lake Park, and that does include the community, the students, the teachers, the administration. If you put the right people in the right positions, you should be able to mandate success. In reviewing this past year, again, nobody's ever had to go through this before, but what was the message that was going out to the families? And to me, it was personally, the messages seemed to be mixed, especially early on. Did we put the kids first? Did we do those types of things to help the children, which should be the priority of the board? The board should not be in the school every day managing and mandating, and the superintendent should not be looking to the board for answers. We should be overseeing his advice and overseeing the processes that he puts into place.
Thank you. Herbie, you'll start with question number 3, which is, what is your stance on in-person learning being required for students prior to a vaccine being widely available to students?
So I think the stance of myself, Kara, and Tom is that students should absolutely be should not be required to attend school if not vaccinated, based on the three reasons that we'll be giving. The first reason would be that students and the family safety and flexibility is needed. The student themselves or someone they live with could be considered higher risk for complications with COVID. This means, but is not limited to, someone older, someone that is an underlying medical condition, or pregnant. And there may be impossible choice to make between education and health. We never want a student or family to ever be put in a position to make this choice. And then overall, the safe learning environment needs to be priority number 1. So that's one of the main goals. And I think Kara and Tom will explain the other 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Beata.
So that's one of the reasons why I decided to run. I believe that in-person interaction is so critical to our children's development, social, emotional, which the environment in the last 9 months has not provided well. And so we're a country of choice, and absolutely I'm not for mandating in-person school, but for those families who can, where their health situation is such where their students and their children are able to attend in school, absolutely they should be given every single opportunity to do so as much as they can. The students who are unable to, for whatever reason, we should be able to provide them the learning opportunity in which they can thrive safely.
Thank you. Tom.
One of the biggest problems with returning all students to campus, or even all students who want to come to campus, is space. If you're going by CDC and county guidelines, you can't have more than 50 people in a room. Now, we have to look at this equitably. We can't say, oh, some students can come back and some students cannot, with exceptions made, of course, for those with special needs or who have difficulty learning. We have to follow the metrics. We have to follow the guidelines set forth for us, whether we agree with them or we don't agree with them. That level was very well set. And if you look at the data that was given, we closed the school in October because the metrics climbed above 8%. And we opened in January when they fell below 8%. We're close to that 8% again. We have to be very cautious, and we can't require full-time in-person learning. We can't mandate that at all.
Thank you. Chris.
So I appreciate the question, Lori. So again, like Beata, this is why I'm running. Our kids need to be in school, and there needs to be a creative approach to getting them back in school. These kids are sitting home. This is a perfect question for kind of knowing what's going on and knowing what's not going on. Families need to have a choice. We need to have a choice. I'm the parent. If I do not want to get my son vaccinated, I shouldn't have to get my son vaccinated. It does not affect the people that do want to get their kids vaccinated. If somebody is vaccinated, they are protected for the most part from COVID. We do not know what the vaccines are. We do not know what the next months and years of COVID is going to be. But what I do know is our children are fading away. They're not getting the education that they are promised by Lake Park. And from there, we need to have a choice and a creative approach to get all students back in school 5 days a week.
Thank you. And Kara.
To piggyback on what Herbie and Tom had said, I'd like to also reflect on, I'm glad to hear all candidates are in agreement on this, because what I heard was that we all agree that students should not be required. I'm hearing people like the idea of choice, and I'm proud to be a part of a member of the school board that actually worked to safely bring about choice. But when you cannot require, and that was what the question was. Part of the thing about requiring is we had to take an approach of looking at our community. We have a community obligation. Bringing about requirements to force people to be back in schools could put unnecessary stress. It could create a dangerous learning environment if you're requiring this. It puts threats on to students of special populations. And I'm glad we're all in agreement on this one.
Thank you. Okay, for this next question, we're going to start with Beata. Given historical low test scores of marginalized students within this district compared to non-marginalized students, how do you plan to reduce the disparity? And also, if you know, where can the public find the relevant data?
So this goes back to the diversity, equity, and inclusion question a little bit, because there are definitely portions of our district which do not have the financial means in order to succeed, or their home conditions are such where they're just not conducive to a learning environment. These were some of the students who were most harmed by not being able to attend in school. And so one of the key is get everybody back in school. To get the data, you need to also analyze the data as to which are the students. How can the school help? What is it that these students are missing? Is it additional information? Is it maybe technology? Do they not have access to technology? Looking at the school report card, if that's helpful, and if it's not helpful, how can we get these students the information and the tools that they need to succeed in their high school as well as in life?
Thank you. Tom.
Well, all of the information that you are talking about can easily be accessed either on the Lake Park website or on the ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education website, where the school report card can be found. One of the things that we have implemented to try to catch students who are, I think you're saying, falling through the cracks, or those who are more disadvantaged, was a program called Lancer 360, where we are looking at the individual contact to students, with students, by staff, by counselors, whether they belong to clubs or organizations, whether they're on sports teams, to try to make them feel as though they belong to Lake Park, to help them. If they can belong socially and emotionally, they're certainly going to improve academically. And using that tool, and we're going to progress with that further in the strategic plan, that will help eliminate some of these disparities that your question referred to.
Thank you. Chris.
So again, this is just another example of the last year not having a solid plan. If test scores are as low as they appear to be, then we have let the students down that attend Lake Park right now. There needs to be, listen, every kid needs to learn in a different way. There needs to be different plans for different groups. That falls on the superintendent and the administration. The board is here to oversee what the superintendent and the administration is there to do, which is provide our kids with the best possible education there is, to provide them with a home, to provide them with everything that encompasses the high school experience beyond the classroom. Athletic teams, clubs, things like that, friendships, dances, everything that makes somebody a well-rounded adult. It is very difficult to do that when they're not welcome in the school. So if we need to start with getting the children in with a creative approach, and that would be, falls on the administration and the superintendent to do.
Thank you. Kara.
Well, as Tom already shared, the information can be found on the Illinois State Report Card. So it's on our website, but anyone can look up the information. That data is also collected in the past. So we did not, last year there was a waiver for mandated standardized testing, so the data is a snapshot in that moment of how test takers are performing on that particular test. You use that as a part of your performance review to be able to better identify what the needs of students who are not hitting their goals are, so that you can put resources and implement change to start to bridge that gap. And we have provided additional staff, counselors to reach out, to continue to work to improve. We can always do better, and that's what we aim to do.
Thank you. And Herbie.
Yes, and I'd like to point out, the candidates all made very good points and have told us where we could find the information. But one thing that I like to kind of state is as a parent and a foster parent, I've had many children that have 504 plans and IEP plans. One thing that I think is often kind of missed is that the parent does have to be the advocate for their children when the children cannot. So this is often kind of forgotten. And I have been the advocate for my children in the past, and even my child at Lake Park at times. And Lake Park has been a very good system, and they have been working with the parents. So I think it's often easy to kind of place blame on a district or on a school system, but at the end of the day, I think everybody kind of shares the blame, especially in a part of time of a pandemic. But at the end of the day, there should be shared blame, and everybody should help.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, Tom, you're going to start. And the question is, what experience do you have in education specifically, either working or volunteering directly with students or teachers in the classroom? And please do not include sports. You're still muted.
Thank you. One of my big failings with the Zoom meeting. As I stated at the beginning, I have 34 years teaching experience at the elementary level. In addition to that, I have taught years of religious education. I have taught in Scouts. I have a master's degree in educational leadership and administration, and I have developed an expertise in curriculum and instruction as well. Learning technology is where I spent the last 20 years of my career, and am very well versed, well, except for unmuting myself at a Zoom meeting, with educational technology. I bring all of those things to the table. I am certainly teacher supportive, have a good relationship with the union representatives at Lake Park, and have a great relationship with the administrative team as well. So there's where my expertise lies. It's right in the field of education.
Thank you. Chris.
So unfortunately, I don't have much education experience when it comes to within the classroom. My experience would be my experience is real world experience, right? I'm a college graduate who works with his children daily to try to help them grow as young men and as great students. When it comes to in the classroom, though, unfortunately I don't have that, other than trying to develop relationships with the teachers that teach my kids, try to have those relationships to try to understand what the teachers are teaching, what the plan is, what the approach is to help my kids grow, right? I'm fortunate enough, and my wife is fortunate enough that we are able to help our kids grow. I understand the last point about, it does fall on the parents. The parents have to be there, but that's a really unfair thing to ask our parents to do in this world when we do have to get out and work and our kids are being schooled at home. So my experience is mostly just working with my children.
Thank you. Kara.
My experience in education with children is started as a volunteer in the classroom of my children's programs at school. That led to me being a catechist and teaching a special needs classroom for over 10 years. I've run Bible camp programs, teaching over 100 children in that program. That eventually led to my professional experience working in the Technology Center of DuPage, which is our career tech education high school of DuPage County. And then currently my position as assistant director for an educational partnership that serves 3 large school districts in the suburbs of Cook County. So I am actively participating in the education or helping to educate students in a meaningful and regular basis, besides raising my 2 children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Herbie. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So both my wife and I are very active in the greater state DCFS system, being both licensed foster care parents for 10 plus years. In addition to obviously having many children come through our homes that have had IEP or 504 plans that we've had to fight for our children with the system or with the school system or with parents and school social workers or school therapists. And so I think as far as from a parental standpoint, that's kind of our extent. Other than maybe from a business standpoint, kind of doing the junior achievement type of JA in a days. That's my extent of the teaching experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Beata.
Thank you. So in addition to completing my undergrad and master's and having 2 specialized certifications, I've taught religious education for 7 years, 4 of them 2nd graders and 3 of them 7th and 8th graders, much different. In my professional life, I've also developed and taught multiple courses within my firm, as well as for professional organizations teaching adults or individuals who want to learn more in their careers. But this ultimately is a board member position. And one of my certifications, the CAE, a huge portion of it was spent on what is good board governance? How do you govern? And so I, again, bring that to this board member, to this election, that I've had individualized training in this and specialty as to how to help lead the district into successful future.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, Chris will be starting, and the question is, what, in your opinion, are the strengths and weaknesses of our school district?
Well, I would think that the strengths of our school district is community and education. I think we do have that prioritized. I think we've done that through the grade schools from what I have been able to witness at Lake Park up until about the last year, which, we just didn't have that solid plan and weren't creative enough to get this, as our test scores are starting to prove. I think that, weaknesses could be able to adjust on the fly, able to adjust quickly, able to be creative thinking, able to have joint decisions made with the teachers and the administration. I sometimes doubt that our teachers, our administration, our board are on the same page. I think it needs to be a group effort. It takes a village to raise children these days. I just wonder how often, and if we are all on the same page with the people within the school, out of the school, and within the board. I think that's probably our biggest weakness.
Thank you. And Kara.
I'm going to disagree with Chris, actually, and I'm going to list that as one of our strengths. Most proud of the leadership's ability to bring the community together, to offer opportunity to vaccinate our community teachers, our own teachers, our community's teachers, additional park district, public servants, and such. That was an initiative by this current administration to move and adapt quickly to make that opportunity happen. And that's something I'm most proud of. Additionally, a strength of our high school is the diversity of opportunity available to students. Whether or not we've been able to get them all to participate is separate, which is actually an area for growth for us, but the richness in opportunities available to students, I'm very proud of. As far as a weakness, I think you can always do better. And so I'd like to see us continue to improve.
Thank you. Herbie.
Yes, I think to continue on to Kara's sentiment, I think one great strength that Lake Park High School has is their financial acumen, and they're just so financially independent right now, and that's just a huge sentiment to what the board has done financially speaking. They're one of the largest budgets of all the surrounding school systems, and they are just so financially sound, and that's something I would love to continue. One thing that I think that they could do a little bit better on is really the trauma-informed training of their overall teaching staff. I think this is something, we just live in a very changing world. And obviously with the upcoming pandemic kind of stage 2, as children start going into classes, this is something that we need to be aware of. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Beata.
So if this question was asked of me a year ago, I would be extraordinarily hard pressed to find any weaknesses of the school district. It's one of the reasons why me and my husband started a family here. It is, in addition to being financially stable, the opportunities, the number of AP classes. When my oldest started high school and I saw the curriculum and the options, I mean, there's so much to choose from, so that our individualized students' needs can be met. The programs, the sports, we just rank so highly. And so there are such tremendous strengths. But then the pandemic happened and all of us were scrambling for the first several months. And I was hoping for some differences in the last 9 months. I'd love more transparency. I'd love faster communication. I know we try and we didn't know what to communicate, but some of the other school districts in our own county knew of things a month before we did. And again,
Thank you.
in school students.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. I think that wide offerings that we have for all students is one of our very strongest strengths. I think we do a great job with life safety, school resource officers, a head safety officer. I think we're forgetting, folks, that we have a really excellent teaching staff and support staff at Lake Park High School. One of the things we are doing really well, if you look at the 11 districts around us in DuPage County, we are the only district that has in-person learning 5 days a week. The only one. We keep talking about getting kids back to school. We have kids back in school 5 days a week. Other districts around us, they have 1 day remote learning. We have allowed students to switch from remote learning. That's flexibility on the fly. We have brought in some very special needs students and 45 other students who need 5 day a week in-person learning. We are adaptable. We are doing it. We are bringing kids into school following CDC guidelines.
Thank you. Okay, Kara, you're going to be next for this next question. Can you speak to your philosophy concerning district finances? How can a board member be a good financial steward of taxpayer dollars, but at the same time allocate adequate funding for resources?
Thank you. You can be a good steward of the many when you recognize, first of all, the importance of serving the community, even when they may not have students in your building. So 80% of our taxpayers don't even have students in our building, and you need to be fiscally responsible to their many, just as much as for those that are actually receiving the services that the high school is providing. So you can do that by making sure you have a balanced budget. Don't spend more than you can afford. The school board has shown they moved from a deficit situation to years ago, 10, 15 years ago, moved to a balanced budget, and they have met that requirement year over year and been excellent stewards of the finances for the district on behalf of all taxpayers.
Thank you. Herbie?
Yeah, I think to continue with what Kara was saying, like I said, the last question as well, they've done an excellent job in balancing that budget. It's a simple planning, business acumen. You have certain needs, you have certain mandated, expenses. More than 80% of their expenses is salary and pension for their teachers, and that's where the expenses should be. But the students are the rest of the expenses, and they do a good job of making sure that they balance their budget, and that they provide the most amount of services to provide for education for the students. And I think they do a wonderful job at that, and they need to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. Beata?
Oh, this is a topic near and dear to my heart as a CFO. I've done this for my company. In the last decade, I've doubled our reserves, our rainy day fund, by millions. Every single year under my tenure as a CFO, we've had a balanced budget and a surplus where we put money aside for emergencies or for investments into growth strategies for my company. That's what I bring on day one, again, as a board member. So what is fiscal responsibility? As Kara mentioned, we do have a responsibility to our students, our parents, and our community. And that can be done with budgeting. And by the way, budgeting is not that simple, especially for an organization this large. You start with what are the needs, and then you determine what resources you need, and you allocate appropriately. And sometimes that means cutting back in areas that might be sort of sacrosanct, but you focus on what is most needed, and you follow through with it, and you monitor all the time.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. We are a district who doesn't deficit spend. There are 3 current board members who have been longstanding board members who that was one of their primary missions, was to get us out of the red and eliminate deficit spending. And we have done that very, very well at Lake Park. One of the things we're also very good at is grant writing. Look at the solar project that was completed a couple of years back. A big portion of that was paid for by funds outside of Lake Park because of the initiatives by our chief financial officer. We're very good at that. We are the financial stewards for the district, and it is our job to not overspend. But we've also spent in areas like technology. We're a leader in the technology among the DuPage County schools. We have a whole separate building set aside just to do that. So keeping within a balanced budget and to avoid any sort of deficit spending is where we need to be.
Thank you. Chris.
I believe that Lake Park's very healthy financially, and I think that's a great job by the current board. I think they've done an outstanding job with the surplus. The one thing I would add, though, is, are we spending enough money in the areas where we may be deficient? Because I think it was Kara that mentioned 80% of the community do not have children in our schools, but we do have a responsibility to them to provide the best possible school to help with the real estate value, just as one thing. Having great schools in the district, having great facilities, having great fields, having great sports programs, having great clubs, having great bands is something that provides great family atmosphere, great community atmosphere, and helps raise real estate value. We have a responsibility to that 80% that does not have children at Lake School to provide the best possible, spends and make Lake Park as attractive as it possibly can be to everybody within the community.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, Herbie, you'll be starting off. And the question is, students and staff have spent much of the past year glued to their screens. Given these circumstances, how should the role of technology in the classroom be changed post-pandemic?
So I think post-pandemic, I feel that teachers need to take a more active role in really touching base with the students, whether that's just a simple check-in, a simple one-on-one, safety check, how are you doing? I think that little touch point will make sure that, the students are getting the interaction they need. I feel like even with my own student, there have been a lot of, blocks of time that are available. And I think the teachers have done a great job in kind of making them available, but they're often going unused. And I feel like as the technology starts going away, I feel like we need to make sure, whether the technology is there or not, teachers need to still make sure that they're still continuing that interaction with the students. So I think that's one way of continuing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beata.
Technology is here to stay. Let's just admit it. It will be part of everything that we do. I do cooking from my phone. So with our students, what we need to do is continue encouraging hands-on, face-to-face interaction and activity. When the school year started, my son had chemistry. He was going to do a chem lab virtually. Bringing everybody back, as many individuals as can, and there's still a lot of Lake Park students who are not in school, giving them the opportunity to shut down the Chromebook, do a lab, go outside, get them out of the house, because I don't know how you are, but some of my kids definitely have their laptop and their phone and maybe a TV going in the background. So getting them outside of the home to encourage face-to-face gym activities, labs, we have to do that, but technology is here to stay.
Thank you. Tom. You're still muted. We can't hear you.
All right, somebody is muting me, I'm sorry. The process was started 5 years ago to be one-to-one, so that every student would have a Chromebook. We were inadvertently prepared for this pandemic because we had that technology in place, and technology is here to stay. It's going to happen. The things we do need to do is focus on that individualized instruction. We need to focus on differentiated instruction and the social emotional learning of the children. We have to have staff check-ins. We have to have counselor check-ins for those students that are identified as being at risk. Those students who don't belong to any clubs, organizations, sports, outside or extracurricular activities. We really need to make sure that we are reaching out to them. And with Lancer 360, we have done that, and that will continue to grow as we develop the strategic plan over the course of the next year.
Thank you. Chris.
Technology-wise, I think Lake Park's as good as anybody. I think we're as good as any of the schools around us. I think we've done a great job providing Chromebooks, not only in high school, all the way through the grade schools, which, feed into Lake Park. Post-pandemic, I think the thing is, I think, we have to make sure we use what we've learned from the last 12 months. And that, and again, I think in a way, there's a small percentage of teachers that need to be held more accountable. I've heard from many times and confirmed this week that, classes are ending after 11 minutes, 17 minutes, 16 minutes, right? And then kids are off, as Beata mentioned, to kind of go on their own. I think this has been brought to the superintendent. I actually know this has been brought to the superintendent's attention, has been brought to the principal's attention. And I think, again, I think everybody has a nice point here about making sure we're touching base with all of the students, touching base with all of the kids. I think going forward, we're going to learn from it and make sure that this time is being used properly.
Thank you. Kara.
The role of technology in post-pandemic. Well, technology, certainly, I share this with Beata, it's not going anywhere. And it's using technology to aid in instruction and continue to provide learning opportunities for students where they're at. If that means they're still remote because that's their choice because of personal family needs, technology needs to be used like we switched from spring doing a asynchronous to a synchronous learning model, meaning students at home are getting the same opportunity to hear and interact with their classmates that are in person. That was a transition that had to happen, and we learned and we continue to learn and apply strategies. Whether it's getting students the opportunity to use technology in person in our labs, our manufacturing department, it's invaluable to have that hands-on opportunity, but it's not an or, it's an and. It's technology and.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, for the next question, Beata, you will start off. And the question is, what role do you think the teachers union should play in the district? As a board member, how do you anticipate collaborating with the Lake Park Education Association over the course of your term?
Well, teachers are a critical piece of the goal of getting our students educated and ready for life. And as a catechist, I teach a couple hours every other week, and God bless you teachers for what you do every single day. I don't know how you do it, and thank you for you doing it, and not me just doing it in evenings when my kids need help. So the school district and the teacher union need to work collaboratively to reach that goal of how do we enrich our students' curriculum and holistic education. Sometimes they're on opposing sides and trying to, obviously the union will fight for the teachers to get the most out of them, but especially after the pandemic and with the teacher contract coming up, we need to really focus on how do we hold teachers accountable to ultimately reach the goal to get our kids better educated and ready for life.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, as I stated, as part of the strengths listing of Lake Park, one of the greatest strengths we do have is our teaching and support staff at Lake Park. They are a caring group of individuals who create that family-like atmosphere that we have grown accustomed to having at Lake Park. Being a person who's been on the board, I'll tell you, negotiating with this teachers union is really quite easy. They're very respectful. They're very, very cooperative, and they're there to put children first. That's what they do. They are the eyes and the ears. They are the people who they spearhead educational changes. They're hearing of it first by sending them to teacher in-services and workshops, conferences, by being presenters in those things, and then sort of train the trainer, teach the teacher sort of model that happens every day at Lake Park High School.
Thank you. Chris?
You know, when it comes to the unions and things like that, I think it's known unions get stronger when there's discourse, and there's been no discourse quite like the last year, right? So as the teachers' unions getting stronger, I think it's more important and more imperative than ever that everybody gets on the same page. The teachers, the administration, the superintendent, and then the board to oversee it. If everybody is on the same page, and again, I think our teachers are outstanding. I think there's, you know, they're learning on the fly what the last year brought, just like the rest of us are. But, you know, like I said earlier in this call, I think that there is some discourse between, you know, different segments of our school. And I think it's imperative that everybody gets on the same page, because otherwise we're never going to accomplish anything. We're not going to get better, which is should be the ultimate goal of this entire process.
Thank you. Kara?
Well, we have the role of teachers that the teachers unions play. I'm hearing that there's discourse. Discourse does not make me uncomfortable. I think that allows for opportunity for growth and improvement. So what I like to see is what happened even during a pandemic, when our union, they were at the table with administration and providing information that worked together to provide a memorandum of understanding of how we could safely execute education for our children, keeping our faculty and staff safe, and not contributing to a community spread. That was that was in conjunction with leadership from the union, not without them. And so if there's discourse, you work together because you have that trust and time built in and the leadership there to help you move through it.
Thank you. Herbie?
Yes, thank you. So I think I've been lucky in my career to be able to work with other types of unions, more like in the steel industry and such. And I think there's nothing to be scared of as far as unions are concerned. And I feel like from a financial or a business standpoint, you say union, and a lot of business acumen people usually get scared or say, oh, well, there's bad things to say about it. But I think, union is there to keep people safe and keep people, fair. But I feel the teachers union, especially in Lake Park High School, has been more than fair, extremely fair, and has, the fact that there is a balanced budget, and the fact that there, like I said, there is no discourse in the union and in the school system, proves that there is a lot of congruity between the union and the school district. So I think continuing as needed is good.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, Tom, you're going to start off. And the question is, what is your vision for education in year 1, 2, and 5 years post-pandemic?
Okay. Well, that's going to all start with the strategic plan. The groundwork for the strategic plan is already in place. We have to have that adequate plan in order to be able to move forward. There's talk of we need change at Lake Park. Lake Park is doing an awesome job. Lake Park is one of the top schools in the state in almost every area that you can measure. Post-pandemic, I again think I will go back to, we need, social emotional attention. We need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those students in that area. I don't think we need to change everything that we're doing at Lake Park. I think we need to continue to move forward in a direction that's positive for all of our students. All of our students is the key. That's what we need to focus on, particularly working with social emotional learning.
Thank you. Chris?
So, a 1, 2, and 5 year plan. Ultimately, I think over the next year and 2 years, I think we need to get Lake Park's test scores back up, head in the right direction. And respectfully, Tom has said that, he believes we are doing a great job. From what I the feedback I get in the community from quite a few people that there is a lot better that can go on within that school. I think 5-year plan, I think as a 5-year plan, there should be just as much focus on kids getting through college, doing the best they can to get into a college if that's the way that they so choose. I think providing an atmosphere that is home, providing some camaraderie, providing a place that people can be prideful of, also should be incorporated in that 1, 2, and 5-year plan. I think it's, again, making this school as attractive as possible, because as I mentioned earlier, more and more people are starting to consider private schools, and that shouldn't be that way. Myself, Beata mentioned, we've moved to this community because the schools are great and they're supposed to provide that same type of education.
Thank you. Kara.
Well, to piggyback off what Tom had said, is in place already is the strategic planning process, which is made up of stakeholders of our community at large. All aspects feed into that strategic plan. That in itself will help direct us where we're going to go from year 1, year 2, year 5. So taking that under consideration, that all stakeholders get to participate in that process and have a voice at the table for that. What I would also like to see is a continued growth, not just toward college, but career and college, being career ready, college ready. The same path is not taken by every student. Public education believes in educating all children, including children with special needs, that which private education does not meet those needs. So I want to continue to grow the area to meet all needs.
Thank you. Herbie.
Yep, and I think to kind of echo what Tom and Kara's saying, absolutely, we need a plan in place. And I think social and emotional needs need to be addressed, but also flexibility. We need to continue the flexibility that Lake Park has already put in place. I think, a lot of the candidates have said, technology is not going away. Absolutely. It's going to get more, if anything. And I think going forward, we don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic. Yes, there's going to be, hopefully more availability of vaccinations and hopefully it's going to be rolled out to the children, but we don't know what's going to happen as far as phase 2 is concerned, or trauma is going to happen. Maybe children are going to need to stay home 100%, so I think, we need to be flexible for whatever the needs of the children and the community is going to be, whatever that is. And I think that needs to be added in the plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Beata.
So this is where my perspective as a current parent and also as a professional, I think will come in very handy. Year 1, reestablish the rigor that we are so accustomed to and why many of us have moved to this district. No more forgetting that there's an F or a D. Let's hold all of our students accountable, because even though all of us might dream of the normal pre-pandemic coming back, life as we know it is going to be different. And then, as we've said earlier today, we're going to have more technology. There's likely going to be students who will need to stay home virtually for years to come because of their health conditions or other conditions. So we need to, in year 1, increase the rigor and get it back to normal. And 2, ensure that our technology and how we structure it is acclimated to both in-school learning as well as virtual learning. Give our teachers the tools, because as our parents, we know that some of our teachers are only as good as technology. We need to get it back.
Thank you. Chris, you'll get to go first for the next question. What relevant experience and or skills would you bring to the LPHS Board of Education?
Well, I guess in a way, like I said, real world experience, professional experience, career experience, but more importantly, a father experience, parent experience that of kids actively going through our school system. I think that's relevant. I really do. I think that, again, parents of all, I believe everybody here is a parent of somebody that's either at Lake Park or has graduated from Lake Park, but kind of the farther some of our board members may get away from the school over the next 5, 10, 15 years, the perspective tends to change. So again, the one quality I would bring is somebody who's inundated in the community, who is, in a way, mentor to the children of this community and somebody that's able to listen. So, listening skills, real world experience, and, again, a fresh perspective. That's what I would bring.
Thank you. Kara.
Relevant experience is the decades of service to my community, literally walking the streets, going door to door to help with sharing of information or helping neighbors who are in need. When you do that, that experience means you're approachable to your community, you're accessible to your community. So I have the experience of all the time serving my community that allows me to take that information and history more than any other candidate has and be able to apply it to where we're going in the future. Skills specifically, professionally, I am in education in a partnership in a business sense, but experience with budgeting and grant writing, understanding policy, and seeing where curriculum is going in the future, having an expertise in the career tech ed pathways. So I have those skills, and as well as strategic planning. I perform that.
Thank you. Herbie.
Yes, so I think my experience in working with children with trauma, coupled with my decades of financial experience, would complement the board members nicely. Additionally, I think if I was elected, I would also bring diversity to the board in both ethnicity and location. In addition, I feel decisions of the board would directly impact my family for many years to come. So the approach that the position I'd be in with accountability and integrity, ensuring that the Lake Park High School is meeting the needs of all the students throughout the district. So I feel like that would all be the experience that I'd be bringing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beata.
So first and foremost, I'm a parent. I will have 2 of my kids in school throughout my entire tenure as a board member. So I will bring that perspective and have that vested interest, not from what the school district was when my kids might have been in school 10, 15 years ago, but now. From a professional perspective, I've mentioned some of it: fiscal responsibility, being a CFO, overseeing HR, IT, capital investments, administration. My company is undergoing strategic planning right now. We are very much in the midst of diversity, equity, and inclusion and unconscious bias discussions right now. Negotiation skills amongst departments and tight budgets and all of that. I've dealt with that. I've done it. Board governance, and also, from a professional perspective, I know what today's generation that is just starting the workforce is missing, and what we can, as a school board, bring to our students to make them.
Thank you. Tom.
Thank you. I think I addressed most of these with my professional experience, but I'd like to add that I have, I believe I have very good interpersonal communication skills, and building relationships is the most important to me. If you can build relationships, trust, and develop character, you're going to be far better off as you move down the road together educationally. I think that I have a vast experience in special education that I hadn't talked about before. The school where I worked for my entire career was the Northside Center for Special Education in the city of Chicago. We had over 1,000 students all on one floor in a building. It was completely accessible to all of our special ed students. And also I have, in addition to the other areas I talked about, experience in adaptive technology and fine arts. So all of those things and my professional experience are what I bring to the board.
Thank you. Okay, so one last question, and then we'll go on to closing remarks. So for the last question, Kara, we're going to start with you. What is the biggest thing Lake Park is currently lacking?
That question was, what is the biggest thing?
What is the biggest thing Lake Park is currently lacking?
As a parent of a student, I'd have to say we're probably lacking connectedness. You know, in particular, my students and other students are feeling disconnected. So I don't know if it's a thing as in a noun or, you know, where you can place like if they're looking for what kind of object are we looking for, but I look at it as a picture, and I'd say Lake Park is lacking connectiveness. It's made more complicated by having 2 campuses, of which our freshmen weren't on campus until more recently. So they lose out on that opportunity to connect with each other. Activities and sports, they've missed out on that opportunity to connect, you know, have meaningful connections. So that's the thing I'd like to see, you know, as we've opened up now opportunities to grow that connectedness.
Thank you. Herbie.
Yes, I think, and this is one of the main reasons why I'm running for the board is the one thing that I think Lake Park as a whole is missing is a big trauma need training program for the entire district. And I think they have pockets that are wonderful. Like they're social workers, and they add social workers that are absolutely great. And I've talked to different parents and of parents of special needs or parents of IEP, children with IEP or 504 plans, and they're absolutely wonderful. The social workers and places, you know, and certain teachers, but I feel like the training and programs in place need to be a little bit better. So I feel like that's the one place that I think that is just missing and just needs to be better overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Beata.
I'll build upon on what Kara mentioned, and I really appreciate the word of connectiveness because we are missing it. I feel that last year has just set us and distanced all of us because we're talking to each other through a computer. We're not as close to each other. And that builds space, that builds separation. And I, again, believe that in order to make our students the best possible members of society, we need to be connected. And so I believe that part of what's missing is a parent's voice. And that's what I would be bringing to the Lake Park community to provide that holistic perspective, because as has been said numerous times today, in order to make the best decision, all the voices need to be heard, and I'll be bringing the parent voice.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the physical challenge that we have had at Lake Park High School for decades now. And the board president would certainly agree with me that we don't have a swimming pool. There are many battles that have to be fought for that. So I'm going to leave that lay. But one of the things I would like to see develop further is more fine arts. For all of the students that we have at Lake Park High School, we have 1 instrumental teacher and we have 1 vocal teacher. They go back and forth between the campuses. That's simply not adequate to provide the fine arts opportunities for our students. I think we should be looking in the area of fine arts and art and graphic arts and computer design to help promote what we call fine arts among our students and make it more accessible and available to all of our students, not just some on this campus and some on that campus.
Thank you. Chris.
Well, I guess a few weeks ago, my humorous answer would have been we're missing students, but you know, we're starting to accomplish that. But listen, hey, when this question got asked, you know, Kara had the unfortunate position of taking this one first. And when that question got asked, all the things that came right again, I know Beata brought it up well. Kara, I thought that was an awesome answer. Connectedness is the answer. It really was. It's again, getting everybody back together, because again, and everybody has said it here, you know, Tom has said it before too. This is about community. It really is giving these kids a home. You know, the last year has brought about, they're not connected. And, you know, I hate to just kind of jump on Kara's answer and Beata's answer, but that really is the answer, guys. It's connectedness. And that's a great word for it. It's probably not the word I would have jumped out, but I couldn't say one better. So excellent. And that's what I'm going to agree with.
Thank you. So our time is just about up. We're going to give each candidate 1 minute for a closing statement. And according to the rules, whoever had the last introduction gets the first closing statement. So Beata, we're going to start with you.
I get to be the lucky one. So thank you again for listening and for putting on this debate. It's been extraordinarily helpful. I grew up in Poland. I immigrated when I was 11 and worked my way up to what I believe is a successful position in life. What I've been doing for the last 15 years as we started a family together is do everything in my power to ensure that my children's future was not going to be, or the path to that future was not going to be as rough as mine. And even before the pandemic started, we were hearing that this generation might be the first one in decades since World War II that will be worse off than we are. This pandemic has hurt us, has hurt our students. And so what you will get from me is transparency, collaboration, directness, and most importantly, a parent's voice to make sure that our students get the best possible education, well-rounded, in person, to become successful adults.
Thank you. Herbie.
Thank you. So let me first thank the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale and the DuPage NAACP for hosting this event. In closing, I just wanted to say to those watching that I hope that I conveyed the fact that I will bring the board passion from a concerned resident, expertise from an experienced business person, and wisdom of an invested parent. Come out and vote for Tom, Kara, and myself. Early voting starts on on March 10th. And please come out and vote on March 6th in person. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Kara.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters again and NAACP. Also, thank you to the fellow candidates for participating in today's forum. It's always nice to be able to have voices and be able to see and hear directly from candidates who are seeking to represent our community. That said, I do believe that I would ask for voters to show up to vote. It's our duty to exercise that, and it's important. I would ask for their votes for Torres, Steets, and Hollitz as members who have proven that they've already been serving or have made efforts to participate and learn more about the board prior to running even. And that I believe that my expertise and service over the decades as a Lancer for Life show I have integrity and investment into our community as a parent of a student now and moving forward.
Thank you. Chris.
Again, I would like to thank everybody involved with putting this meeting on. And, the one thing that's refreshing to me is no matter which way this election goes, everybody here involved really does seem to have the best interest of Lake Park in mind. So there probably is not a bad choice, is my guess. For myself, personally, it's pretty clear to me as a voter. It's pretty clear to me. Kara, Tom, and Herbie seem to be very much aligned with their perspective, with what the board has been doing over the last year and the way things have gone as we have two current board members here. If you're interested in change, something different, a fresh perspective, then you would vote for myself and vote for Beata. It's one of these things where, the perspective I'm going to bring it's not in the classroom. It's the experience I bring is not of a board member. It's one of listening, learning from what I've heard, and then leveraging that to make the best decision for the students. So, again, there's not really a bad choice here at all. And I want to just thank everybody for coming out and vote.
Thank you. Tom.
Well, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, of course, but more importantly, I'd like to thank those folks who are listening and becoming more well-informed voters. The other candidates, it's unfortunate we didn't have all 7 people here or at the previous forum. Hearing their points of view would certainly be helpful in creating more informed voters. I would also like to think that we have been great stewards of the district's finances. I think that we have created good communication among all the stakeholders. I think that we don't need school board for a change. We need to continue the progress that we have. Our scores are not in the tanker. Our in-school learning is above what all the other districts that are doing in the surrounding area. I think we need to continue to grow with what we're working on, move forward, develop the strategic plan, and continue to grow as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This concludes our program. Once again, thank you for tuning in and for your participation. I encourage you to learn more about the league by visiting their website at www.lwvrb.org, as you can see on the screen. And I'm going to turn this back to Roberta for final remarks. Hopefully I'm turning it back to Roberta. Roberta seems to be having some technical difficulties, is my guess. There she is.
Still mute. There I am. Gotta love Zoom. What can I say? I should say thank you, Lori. Thank you also to our candidates for today's great discussion. Thanks to all the interested community members who are with us today and those who will view this video at a later date. Educating voters is one of the important services the League of Women Voters provides. We appreciate the assistance of our co-sponsor and partner, the DuPage NAACP, particularly Patrick Watson and Kiwana Bullreese, in making this forum happen. Early voting is currently underway at the Office of the Election Authority, which this election is being held at the DuPage County Fairgrounds, Building 5. Monday, March 22nd is when early voting opens in locations throughout DuPage County, such as Stratford Square Mall, Entrance 3. As of today, the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale has completed 5 candidate forums in advance of the April 6th election, with one more forum scheduled for Hanover Park Trustee on March 15th. Check our website for details and recordings of all our previous forums covering elections in both Roselle and Itasca. One more time, that's www.lwvrb.org. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day.